Hey guys, so I'm going to start this series. It's going to be story time videos. I wanted to put all of these stories, I'm actually planning on putting all of these stories in um, my, there's going to be a book that's going to come out and it's going to talk about it's going to be called Tired Nights Lead to Success, and it's going to be all about my struggles as a composer because as life as a composer is not all a cakewalk. It's not, I mean, I don't want to do anything else. I mean, aside from teaching, which I absolutely adore, um, which I absolutely love doing. I love teaching other students. Check out courses below. Check out um, Google Forms below if you wanted to work on a piece with me or have a consultation or a lesson. All of that information is going to be in the description box. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be sort of summarizing the stories that I'm going to be putting in my memoirs about composition. Tired Nights Lead to Success is one of the memoirs that's going to come out. But uh, I was going to talk about it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 video series about my experiences learning composition. In the beginning, I have to say, learning composition was awesome because I kind of dove in um, knee deep and started writing for large ensembles like bands. Um, I started writing for those kind of groups instead of writing for piano or um, for chamber groups or for solo and piano, that kind of thing. So I I wanted to know about all of the sound colors before I went into orchestration, and what better way to do that than saying, okay, I'm going to write a piece for band. So started in 2007, got my hands on Finale in the fall, been using Finale ever since. I now use Finale along with um, MuseScore, which is a free software program. If you guys need, if you composers need a software tool that'll help you compose and you don't have the money to spend for Finale, definitely I would recommend getting MuseScore because they will help you. And I'll put a link down below for that one as well. MuseScore.org is going to be the one that I'm going to put down below. MuseScore.com is the sharing platform where you could share music. Um, but I, uh, when I first started doing composition, it was okay. I mean, I liked it because I was green. I didn't know anything, and that's probably the best learning ground that you can have as a composer is not going and having all these rules placed on you. Like later on in my theory career, I would start to think, oh, okay, yeah, you've got these rules that you have to follow, you have these things that you have to do. You have to, not do parallel fifths like Beethoven. You have to do all of these different rules, all of these different voice leading techniques. And so that's when it got more complicated. But before then, it was actually pretty great. Um, I just experimented with whatever I thought sounded well. together. And the the one thing that you get is sort of a reality check when you go into some of these programs and you say, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to write for that instrument in this ensemble." Like piano is not a band instrument, it is a solo instrument. Although there are works that have a piano feature, like piano concertos and such, but for my first band piece, it was there was no um, piano part because there wasn't supposed to be. So I, over the next 3 years, would edit that piece and edit that piece and edit that piece, sometimes while starting new ones. And I just did it. So I just did what I did, and I showed the works or the work that I had done to my professor at the time when I came into the program. And he says, "Oh yeah, this is good. This is good. We can work on this. This may not work well because of this." I got a lot of good advice. I I I like those first 2 years because they were full of just growth and learning how to do different things even before I had the theory classes that would actually help me become a better composer. I was learning it before time, and I just remember, recording all the lessons and going back and forth with the professor and, you know, saying, "Isn't this gonna wouldn't this work? Wouldn't this work?" And, I almost miss it because now, um, we're we're not unless we collaborate with one another, we're not really, collaborating a lot unless we get together, and now that's kind of out of the question except for Zoom. But, back then, it's like you're going into a studio and working on an album together. You're going and you're saying, "Oh, well, what about this? Will this work for this instrument?" That kind of thing. I miss those collaborations, and I also miss the very few times I had works played at when I was in the program, and I'll get to that in the juries and recitals videos that I'll put up when I'll talk about those. But yeah, I I miss having the collaborations. Now that basically you're an adult and now you're supposed to be an established musician, which I kind of am not. Um, you kind of have to have you still have to have the fire in your belly to do this job, to do this composing, and to share your work with others. And that's why I share it on this YouTube channel because it's my way of saying, here's what I've created. And if you want to take a look at it, if you want to play it, here it is, here are the parts. Um, and though that really is my extent of getting performed right now. I've actually done some composition competitions, won a few, not very big ones. Um, but anyway, you know, now I use the YouTube to basically share my work with the world, and it usually works that way. People do take to some of it. Um, it wasn't until about the midway point when one of my professors retired and another professor came in his place, um, that I found myself almost not liking uh, composition. I have a chapter in this Normal Pains memoir that I've been working on that talks about classical composition. It says, "I've found that these days that composition has turned into something of an evil demon that makes you feel like a spat on speck of dust in my latest piece, Singer's Lament, my least favorite piece that I've ever written. I mentioned the harsh reality, how the harsh reality has darkened the very dream. Well, I have found that the execution of this work has darkened my very dream of a career as as a professional composer, rather. One of the things that I admit that I have not done successfully, I have not done is successfully blocked out my previous anxieties on the complexities of my craft, which should not exist. 10 weeks, 11 weeks, now 12 into my studies, and I'm still struggling with definite edits and details as people that I have graciously summoned to perform my works. And I've so desperately tried to put them on the table and do it. The common practice my composition teacher and I have is that I do one set of corrections while he corrects them, which is typical, which is fine, but it leaves me thirsting for more favorable reviews and hours of practice and editing to make, well, from the people who hear the works, you want to have them performed. This is just how the way composers have to work. Composers must be willing to devote hours and hours of practice and editing to make their compositions the best and brightest they could be. It's the same as doing an instrument. I saw something from composer Frank DeKelly saying that. It's just like playing an instrument. You got to practice all the time. You got to sit with a pencil and paper for hours or at your computer for hours doing it. And as I read through this chapter, which is pretty long, um, I tend to know, or I tend to find out that I wasn't as mature when I was in college as I am now. Now that I'm out of school, and now that I don't have those crazy deadlines of 2 months and 2 weeks, um, I am able to take my time with the composition process and do many different things, play around with things, make things different that work. If something doesn't work, I can just change it. So I've kind of come into my own as a composer and knowing what I can do and what is not doable. I seem to favor now self-study. And I'm going to go over in my courses, a lot of composition courses that I'll teach. Um, you've got to do a lot of self-study on your own. It's not just me telling you to study this, study that. It's a lot of your own score study. And I did a lot of that when I was at Cal State, but it was rather hurried. Now that I'm out of school, I can have the time I need to really do something, really put something together that is cohesive. A lot of times when I was in composition, when I was studying, it felt often like I was just throwing stuff together. And I didn't have a real compositional stride like I do now. And I even say in this chapter, if only I could focus and write something with some meaning, and it had to be meaning for me. But when I was learning, it was more about learning the technique and basically gleaning the technique from the repertoire that you studied and putting it in a piece. And that's generally what composition teachers teach you. So, like I say in here, with my writing, feeling is key. I'm not a mathematical soul. I cannot write music utilizing tone rolls, although I can write music utilizing 12 tone. I just don't feel like it. I have an ear, and the ear should be for the use of consonant materials. meaning I like stuff that is sweet. I like stuff that is um, has more fruitful substance. To me, the 12-tone stuff has never really gone over well, and as is with a lot of people, it doesn't go over well. Um, so I really, my compositional stride now is more what what comes natural to me. I've come into my own as sort of a musical soul, and whatever is in there is what comes out. Um, I do listen to a lot of music. Listening to a lot of music is also key. Um, but I don't feel like utilizing. I really, I mean, there are only sometimes I feel like I could experiment. Um, I don't view music as an experiment to me. I view it more as an extension of God, an extension of what I'm, all about. And, it just, yeah, the theory and the counterpoint will take you so far, but at a certain point, you've got to find your own voice and use the theory skills that you have tucked away to to influence that voice to have you make compositions that you are proud of. Um, what I'm really proud of now, actually, is making more worship music um, for God, and I am actually doing more of that now. And I'll get into that when I share the year in review 2015, because that's when this whole writing for God thing really ramped up, and we'll see how my music has changed from 2010 to 2015 and on from 2015 up to now. Um, and I'll go into all of that where my inhibition, my ambitions rather changed, and I wanted to write more beautiful material um, and be colorful, as I say in this memoir. Um, you know, and at even one point, I in studying composition, I even said classical music is just too serious for me. Singing in choir, performing in jazz are almost the only highlights for me. I wish that my work would be as rewarding as these two performing acts. I really wish I could write a swan song for choir that wasn't as difficult as the last. Yet I do not understand how we can do a piece like Eric Whitacre's A Boy and a Girl, which is full of dissonance, and we can't take on a student's choir piece of the same or similar nature. At that time, I didn't understand how different my piece was from that other one. Now that I've been out of school a while, looking back on it, I'm able to say, oh, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I should have made it for this instrumentation. And so now what I'm doing in my compositions is I'm starting to go back and some of those choir works I'm revoicing, I'm recomposing them for instead of voice for strings, because I said, well, this would fit in orchestra more 10 times better than it would fit as a choral piece. And I didn't think so then, but hindsight is always 2020. And so now I'm going back and I'm reworking a lot of these pieces, and it's a lot of fun to go through it. Um, so that's kind of I had a lot of disdain when I first started learning composition, and it got to be more difficult as my later years in school went on. I got to dislike it more and more. But now that I'm out of school, that's not the case. More later.